This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
So it has been a busy time in the Valley of the Sun, the Valley of the Sports, the busiest time that I can remember covering sports here in the great state of Arizona. And with the Super Bowl and Kevin Durant and a new Cardinals coach and spring training and the World Baseball Classic and March Madness and NASCAR's coming to town and all that, one of the stories that really struck me during the Super Bowl, one that I kind of got sad about, but I'm happy. I'm happy for him. The one, the only Kent Summers joining us on the Extra Point Podcast. The newly retired Kent Summers announced during the Super Bowl. What day of retirement is this for you?
This is day two. Day two, yeah. So it still feels like I'm, just on vacation or taking a couple of days off after covering all the stuff you mentioned. It's still a little strange or hasn't sunk in yet.
Yeah, and I think I talked to you probably a month ago, and you were rocking and rolling with columns. But had this been something that had been kind of percolating for a while? What went into the decision to hang them up?
Yeah, I'd kind of been thinking about it for a year, and then in late October, I guess, Gannett, who owns the Arizona Republic, offered voluntary severance program, and seemed like a good time to me. It just felt right, so I volunteered, and they accepted. And they said, "Do you want to go now? I mean, you can leave this Friday." That was like 4 days later, and I like, well, staying through the Super Bowl seems like an obvious time to go. And they said, "We agree," and so they were nice enough to let me do that. And I didn't, kind of wanted to slip out the back door with a little as fanfare as possible, but that didn't happen. But people have been very nice. It's been a little bit like hearing your own eulogy at times, so.
Well, and it was interesting all the years that you've tried to get the news out of Mark Dalton over at the Arizona Cardinals, and he's the one that kind of breaks the news there during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's the end of the first quarter, and I get up out of my seat in the press box to go use the bathroom and get a bottle of water. And he's standing in the little stairwell, Mark Dalton and Chris Melvin, Cardinals media relations. And Mark's like, you got to go sit down. You can't get out of your seat. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, you can't get up here. You got to go sit down. And I just, wanted to, no, go sit down. Like, all right. Then it dawned on me that they might do something like that. So.
Well, how is retirement? How is do you have like a honey-do list? Have you accomplished anything? What's been your priorities here?
I pulled some weeds at my house, my son's house, paid a couple bills, stupidly had the alarm set this morning for some reason. No reason to get up, but yeah, like I said earlier, it doesn't feel like I'm retired, but I'm sure it will in a couple of weeks. And there's some family stuff in the next, month or two. I'm going to go see my parents who live out of town. Our second son and his wife are having a baby in April. They live in Georgia, so I'm able to, that's kind of what I wanted to do, is be able to go do some of those things where maybe I really couldn't before, especially if there was a lot popping in the Valley, which it always seems like there is nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it probably was something that, I mean, we're all kind of like, I'm thinking about retirement, just turning 45 here. But as you kind of looked at how much is going on in the Valley and how much it's grown, was it at all hard to walk away?
No, it really wasn't. I was pretty much ready. I will admit, last week when the Kevin Durant trade finally went down, I thought, wow, that would be fun to cover the Suns and Kevin Durant in a playoff run, the final 20 games of the regular season, and then in a playoff run. But no, I'm content. There's no second guessing on my part, which tells me, yeah, I was right. I was, I felt like I was ready to go, and it still feels like that.
Well, you're certainly going to be missed. Is this like a 99.9% chance? Can you give me a percentage? We'll pin you down the way you've pinned down athletes over the years.
I wouldn't say that. I've been kind of phrasing it as I retired from the newspaper. I don't want to work full time again unless I have to. But, I wouldn't mind freelancing and doing some things locally. Still, I still like to write. I would still want to write. But things like that would be fun. Maybe even see if we can put a podcast together. I don't know. I think I'm the only person in America now without a podcast. So I think I'll join everybody else. But yeah, I don't, we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to give it like 3 or 4 months and not do much at all except, family stuff and things around the house.
Well, open invitation anytime you want to come on here. Maybe you could even, come in here and use our studio and just be a, live studio guest whenever you want. As you look back through like the kaleidoscope of your career here, what are kind of the top 5 memories that stand out? Did you, in your column, you said goodbye, but as you reflected on it, what were some of those moments that were really important to you and I think important to the Valley?
The big events were a lot of fun to cover. Immediately comes to mind because most of my career was spent as a Cardinals beat writer. So covering the 2008 run to the Super Bowl was so much fun and improbable. I mean, that was a team that was getting blown out in December, and they turn it around and make a run and go to the Cardinals' first Super Bowl. So that would probably be number one. And then in no particular order, I mean, I covered the last 2 Suns championship series, with the Bulls against the Bulls in '93. I did the road games in Chicago, those 3 road games, which were all timers. That was a blast. And then this, 2 years ago, in the finals against Milwaukee, covered the Suns all the way through. Even last year was a lot of fun with the Pelican series and then the Maverick series. But some other events that weren't as big but were just as much fun. And like I'd been at the paper 3 years in 1988, and they sent me with Grand Canyon's basketball team to the national tournament, and Paul Westphal was the coach. And they just suspended their 2 leading scorers, and somehow they went on and won that tournament. I mean, it was amazing, and it was a lot of fun, and Westphal made it great. The year before that, I covered Mesa Community College in a national basketball tournament, and they finished 3rd. That was a tremendous run. So all of those things were a lot of fun to cover. It's covered greats with the Cardinals, Aeneas Williams' career, Hall of Fame, a lot of his Hall of Fame career. A lot of Larry Fitzgerald's Hall of Fame career. I remember, his first training camp, he was 20 years old. And those first couple of years, he had a reputation as not the hardest working guy in the business. And to watch him mature and become that kind of player I was really fortunate. There were a lot of great stories. And then with the Cardinals, to cover characters like Buddy Ryan, like Dennis Green, Bruce Arians, just kind of these personalities that just filled up the room and sometimes wrote your stories for you. It didn't quite make up for all the 4 and 12 seasons, but it made it bearable.
So if I would have told the young you, hey, this is going to be your career, would you have believed me?
I think that was my hope at the time. If you would have told me this is what's going to happen, I was like, yeah, I'm good with that. I was a beat writer for Arizona State, the Cardinals, got to parachute in on the Suns here and there, parachute in on the Diamondbacks, got to be a columnist for almost 5 years at the end of my career. I would have taken it. And the way our business has gone the last 10 or 15 years with so many cutbacks, so many buyouts, so many layoffs, to survive all that and kind of like decide for myself after 38 years at the Republic that I wanted to retire. I mean, I'm really lucky because a lot of people more talented than I am didn't have that happen to them.
What does the future of sports media look like, in your opinion?
I don't know. It's a good question. I'd like to think there's a place for us. We're in newspapers. We don't put much emphasis on the printed product anymore. It's all online and digital, and trying to figure out how to make money for that. I like to think somebody will be able to eventually, I hope it's not where the only viable media or thriving media becomes the team websites. Not that those guys don't do a great job, they do, but I think fans need an unfiltered voice, an unfiltered reporter who will ask the hard questions in press conferences and write the difficult stories as well as the fun ones. I hope that's coming, and I'm fearful that maybe it's not. And granted, sports aren't the most important thing in the world. What really worries me too is those questions aren't getting asked at city council meetings and school board meetings, and those things aren't being covered because there just aren't enough reporters around anymore. So, long-winded answer saying I don't know. Are we headed into the direction of The Athletic, where it's strictly subscription based? Although there's they have some pop-up ads now and stuff. I don't know. Nobody's proven that it's viable yet to do that. So maybe in my lifetime it'll get figured out.
Yeah, I think we'll see some consolidation. I think we'll see still a lot of competition, but it just seems like that it can't continue how it's going because it's like the teenager who has 50 different haircuts, It's like pick one. Like yeah. What are we? What are you? So it's fascinating.
I would, like any newspaper, we've had a lot of different initiatives over the years and a new thing they're trying. And, I would come home and tell my wife, it's like, God, they're doing this again. And this is going to be awful. She goes, don't worry about it. In 6 months, it'll be something else. Move on to the new thing. And that's held true.
No, absolutely. As you look at Valley sports right now, will you still be a part of it? Will we see you at a Cardinals game, maybe in the stands?
I think that would be fun. What I would like to do is maybe go on the road and hang out with Cardinal fans and see what that whole road trip going with the team is like. I want to get the whole tailgate experience too. I've never tailgated wherever, what it's like. We go cover games and we walk by all those people having fun. I think that would be really cool to do. I don't think I'll go to a lot of games. I mean, I've watched a lot of games in my career and thousands and thousands of practices too. And it's, I'm not saying I'm burned out, but it's not a thing I'm going to write on my calendar either.
Right. Now, we won't see you in the stands at training camp next year in Glendale?
Well, never say never, but no, I don't. A couple of years ago, we were standing on the sideline with other reporters, and we started figuring out how many football practices each of us had attended. And I thought, I started playing when I was 6 and played through high school. And then, with my job, I mean, it was upwards of more than 10,000 football practices.
Wow. How were you?
It was like thousands. It was crazy. It was depressing too.
Well, I mean,
my line is, if you've seen one football practice, you've seen them all. It's like the Kennedy family. They all look alike, no matter who the coach is. They're all, everybody thinks they're reinventing the whole thing. And I'm like, no, your practices look a lot like Buddy Ryan's practices,
Yeah, that's a perspective we need to keep. So yeah, launch the podcast for sure. Do you have? So you started playing at 6 years old. How good of a player were you?
I was a good high school player, and that was it. I really wanted to go and play beyond that level, but lack of size, speed, and overall athletic ability doomed me to play that level. So I was lucky enough to come up in an age and at a school where we weren't really great in anything, so I could play all 3 sports. It's not, I didn't have to specialize in anything. So, and that's not the experience I think today for most average high school athletes.
No, for sure. I got kids now, and you got to choose at 13, and it's a little bit sad. As you were watching though, sitting there, the thousands of hours of practice, who was the best player that you got to watch in person?
Ooh.
Maybe most physically gifted too. Who are some of the guys that are just on the Mount Rushmore of I got to watch that guy work?
It was a real pleasure, I got to say, watching Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden in practice, because all the catches fans see him make in games and that I saw and wrote about, they would make plays like that routinely in practice. I mean, the one hand reach up and stab the ball out of the air, or jump up in the back of the end zone. Those guys were incredible. They really were. So I would think those two would stand out. Aeneas Williams was a freak athlete, and he never stood still during practice. Like when it was offensive period and his defense wasn't out there, he was like sprinting in the middle of the field or doing push-ups or something like that. And the great players, the Hall of Fame players, are that way partly because of that kind of work ethic. Like Fitz and Anquan practice as hard as anybody I've seen practice.
Interesting. And how did your job change over the years as we have gone from watching practice to watching 10 minutes of practice and trying to figure out exactly what's happening and turn a report that is factual?
It's more difficult in a lot of ways. I think, and this is true, I think, in all the major professional sports, more today than ever, they keep reporters at a distance. It's designed to. At the Cardinals, we used to be able to walk off the field with assistant coaches as we interviewed them. And at training camp, we could get whoever we wanted to get. And it was easier to cover the team because you develop relationships with people. And you could have one-on-one interviews without, media relations people, hanging around. And that's not just an NFL thing. That's an NBA thing and Major League Baseball. I was around, remember pre-internet days. So, if you had a scoop, you guarded it closely, and you went the next day and got your competitor's newspaper and hoping he or she didn't have it, or hoping you didn't get scooped on something. But you had to wait till the next morning to find out, if you'd been beaten on a story, or if you indeed have the scoop on everybody else. So the internet changed things, and then there became a 24-hour news cycle, and it was almost like going back to the old days, like you see in movies, like the kid on the street selling the newspapers. Like, here's the latest. That's kind of what the internet has done for the business. So now a scoop lasts 10 seconds, and everybody else sees it on Twitter and has it, and it's not what it used to be.
Now, did you delete Twitter? I often think the minute I'm done here, I'm done with Twitter. Have you opened it?
Yeah, I've opened it. I've actually tweeted a couple times. I guess I'm too addicted to it, and I want to see if people like my tweet. I'm vain enough to, but I'm not going to be on it. I haven't been on it as much as if I were, still working and still in the business.
All right, I'm liking your tweet right now, whatever it is. I'm giving you a like just for that dopamine hit.
Thank you. I'll feel much better.
As you have here, watched the Cardinals after the Super Bowl and seen what they've done coaching wise. We saw the news about the coordinators today. We saw the news about Jonathan Gannon last week. Can you remember a staff that's this young?
No, I don't ever remember having a head coach who's 40, defensive coordinator 29, offensive coordinator 35. I don't know if that's been done in the league, much less with the Cardinals. And I'm fine with it. I mean, those guys have credentials. Rawless, maybe only been in the league a couple of years, but then you read like he was being pursued by a lot of teams for their defensive coordinator's job. Let's see how Gannon fills out the rest of the staff. I think he'll need to add some more veteran guys. I would like to see him add somebody with head coaching experience who's been through this. If that's Mike Zimmer, one of his mentors, or a Marvin Lewis, but somebody of that ilk who can come in and say, here's what you don't know, or you're going to have to deal with this. Or if something happens, hey, I've been through something similar. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I did right. I think that will be really valuable. I think it's smart to hire a staff not entirely comprised of your friends. I think, it's nice to have some people that maybe you didn't have a relationship before. who might be more willing to stand up in meetings and say, I disagree. Why are we doing it this way? I think we should do it that way.
For sure. Is there, I guess the elephant in the room, the big question is Kyler, and you just wonder, okay, Cliff, obviously that the Saints game, there was the argument on the sidelines, and you thought at that point, okay, at least I did. I was like, this thing's done. This can't happen. But how do you reach Kyler Murray, in your opinion?
That's a good question. There's so much going on in that whole dynamic. I think, the easy answer would be he needs some tough love, but not necessarily a guy who's a hard ass who comes in and yells at him and chews him out all the time. I don't think that's what he needs. He doesn't need a friend either, but he needs somebody who will immediately earn his respect, who can say, and this is true of pro athletes especially, they want from coaches, how are you going to make me better? How are you going to help me reach my goals? And they'll know right away whether you can do that or not, whether it's their position coach, their head coach, or their coordinator. So I think that's really important. But we've got, the pressure of his contract coming through. We've got the questions about his leadership. Oh, and he's got a repaired ACL and meniscus, and we don't know when he's going to be available next season. So much wrapped up in that. I like what I heard from Gannon. I like that they met right away, that they continued to talk every day. I like that Gannon said, look, we're going to help him too with our offensive scheme by putting him under center some too. It's not going to be all shotgun. I think that limited him in terms of what he could accomplish and really what the offensive line can do. I think that's really, really smart. So it's so early, but I like what I've heard so far.
How quickly can you rebuild an NFL roster? And how much do the Cardinals need to be rebuilt, in your opinion?
Well, they do need to be rebuilt. I mean, you've got to bolster the offensive and defensive lines first. You don't have enough depth on defense. You lose J.J. Watt. Offensive line, we all know what's going on there and at the people they're losing. And, and it's going to be more difficult a year from now than it is right now because Kyler's extension doesn't really start to hammer the cap until 2024. So this is an important juncture to get people in place. People look at Philadelphia and say, look, you can do it in 2 years. They did it in 2 years, but they were very early in Jalen Hurts, contract too. So I don't know if 2 years is realistic for the Cardinals. But then again, you look at so much changes. I mean, the Rams collapsed this year. Philadelphia ascends. And Seattle's better than, anybody thought they would be. So it can be done. I think the first order of business, if they can get Kyler playing to the MVP level he was in the first half of the 2021 season, that'll be the biggest thing.
And if you can't, then what do you do?
And if you can't, then you got to move on. And the sooner you do it, the better. It's sort of what Philadelphia did with Carson Wentz too. I mean, realize it's not working, and as soon as you come to that point, you try and move on, and take the hit against your cap. The worst thing you can do is just keep watching for years and years, waiting. Oh, maybe this will be the year the corners turn. Or maybe next year will be the year the corners turn.
Was this ever? I mean, looking at the Cardinals when you first started covering them, can you believe that you're having this conversation about the Cardinals paying a general manager and a head coach to walk away and even considering it for a franchise quarterback?
Yeah. That certainly wasn't the case under Bill Bedwell. And when they were in Sun Devil Stadium and, everything was, they were watching every nickel and every dime. But, even back then they were overpaying quarterbacks or paying them before they had to. I mean, they gave Jake Plummer a boatload of money before he had really proven himself in the league. And, there were some guys in the locker room with raised eyebrows like, okay, you're paying him, but why, what about me? What about all these other guys around? So, but yeah, I think it's since they've moved into the stadium, since Michael Bidwell's taken over, it's a lazy thing to say that the Cardinals won't spend money. They don't always spend it wisely. They've blown a lot of money, but they'll spend money.
How much have you seen Valley sports grow since you started covering sports here?
Oh, it's incredible. When I came, it was Arizona State football and the Suns, and probably University of Arizona football and basketball. Those were the big beats. When I started at the paper, those were the coveted beats, because what else was there in town? In 1988, the Cardinals moved here from St. Louis. Everybody was really welcoming. There were a few people in town. Joe Gilmartin of the Phoenix Gazette, I remember him writing at the time, "Don't do this. Wait for expansion. We do not want the Cardinals here. You do not want Bill Bidwell as your owner."
Wow.
But that was one tiny voice. Most everybody else was thrilled. Then you had the Diamondbacks. Hockey comes here. You've got, just tons more high schools than you ever had back in those days. So it's changed a lot for the better, and it's been great, because I feel like I hit it at the right time too. I was able to cover sort of this new frontier of sports in this growing, burgeoning city. So, and it's also a challenge too, because so many people moved here from elsewhere and kept their allegiances back home. It's at times, if the home team's not winning, if the Cardinals aren't winning, there aren't a lot of people paying attention. I'll go watch, if I'm from Buffalo, I'll go watch the Bills instead of this, or I'll go outside at 65 degrees in November and I'll go play golf and not spend 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon being frustrated with the Cardinals.
I get it. Or just watch the Extra Point every night at 10:30, where we can get you up to speed with everything pretty quickly. Boom.
Exactly.
We need to get you in studio, by the way. I cannot thank you enough for your time. Leave me with this. Who will be the next Arizona team to hoist the championship trophy?
Ooh, the Suns.
This year?
They got the best shot. I think they got a chance. I like, this wasn't their plan to sort of lay low and go through periods where they weren't very good or they were mediocre. But the West is wide open. There's nobody in the East who's unbeatable. We'll see how it all measures, but a healthy Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, I'm pretty intrigued by that. I'm not predicting they're going to win it, but I think they have the best chance. Obviously, the Diamondbacks are young and more exciting than they have been. The Coyotes are in the midst of a tear down and rebuild, and I think the Cardinals sort of are too. So the Suns are the easy answer there.
All right, you heard it here first. And if they don't, oh gosh, they need to win it. We need this. We need this, Kent, and we hope to see you in the stands.
One championship among those four franchises in it's like 120 something collective seasons or something like that in Arizona. One championship. I admire Arizona sports fans who have stuck with these teams. I really do. It's a great deal of loyalty they've shown, and they keep hoping for something better, and they haven't received it since 2001.
Well, Kent, thank you for all your service and hard work for the Arizona sports fan over the years. We hope you feel honored. We hope you'll be a guest again here on the Extra Point, and hope to see you working a little bit in retirement, okay?
All right. Thanks for having me, Mark.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.